Got it. Click.
It's fun for me to have somebody else that'll get on your case besides me. If it's just me, I'm a nagging wife. But if it's me and your sister, that's fun.
Um,
Hello. Okay, give it 1 minute, and I'm gonna have you guys do a test.
why can't I see you on camera?
I don't know, but we're on camera. Go ahead and say hello.
Hello.
John, say something.
Hello.
Okay, give it a few
Hello.
minutes. Okay, give it a few minutes.
On camera.
Okay. No, but we're on camera. John. Go ahead and say hello.
Hello. Check.
Hello.
Okay, mics are working. John. Okay, that's good. Okay, welcome in, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Sibling Slueths. And we're your host. I'm Susan. And then we also have...
Johnny Lee's.
And...
Miss Cameron 75.
welcome in. So how was your guys' day today?
It was all right.
Better.
Well,
Getting good, actually. Getting better.
I'm glad. Awesome. Thank you, Cleveland Plan 1990. I'm glad that you can hear everybody. Well, I had a pretty normal week, but just kind of like, I'm tired of the rain. It's been raining and raining and raining, and it just doesn't seem to want to end. And we had some flooding in our basement, so that wasn't fun. But we had a good Easter.
What's the gas like there?
The gas.
The price
Gas
of gas,
price.
he means.
The what?
The
Price
price
of
of
gas.
gasoline.
I don't know. I haven't left my house, so I don't know.
Dude, it jumped. It's jumped 49 cents here.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
You know why though?
Well, probably because of the bridge thing, and a lot of stuff's
The-
going to be going up.
The bridge? No, it's because of the eclipse.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that too. Oh, okay. Well, I'm sorry, you guys. This was just a humdrum week, but today we have a really interesting case, and we are going to talk about Chowchilla. Now, I had never heard, until I heard of this case, I had never heard of Chowchilla. And honestly, probably the only reason that people know of Chowchilla is because of this case. And I could tell you that because it's a very, very small town in California.
Yes, indeed.
And just to kind of give you a layout of the layout of California. California is about approximately 163,000 square miles, okay? It's the 5th largest economy on Earth. You can drive 13 hours without leaving the state. So it's a huge state. Okay? Hold on. Now, most people think that California is a very, very liberal state. While we're not talking about politics, but most people think of California. When they think of California, they think of San Francisco, LA. But the state is actually very diverse. And this tells you how diverse it is to kind of get you a feel for how Chowchilla is. Even though Donald Trump in 2016 did not win California, more people in California voted for Donald Trump than the people in Montana, Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Alaska combined. More people voted for Donald Trump in California than all of those states combined, okay? So that just shows you how diverse California really is. It's just the big cities, okay? So, Chowchilla. It's a very, very hot area. Not a lot of water. It doesn't get enough rain. The air is terrible, especially on a really bad day when it's hot. It's like breathing through an exhaust pipe. It's very dusty. So the time period of when we're going to be talking about today, it was 1976. So this case was, pretty far back, okay? Chowchilla is 150 miles southeast from San Francisco. And the median family income back then was like $6,800. So, Chowchilla. How did Chowchilla get infamous? Well, let's go back. It's July 1976. Kids are attending a summer camp. I don't think it was, and I know when I think of not summer camp, summer school. When I think of summer school, I think, oh, those are the kids that, failed, classes, so they have to go to summer school. But this is more like a summer program, fun program. The kids were actually really excited. The day that this event that we're going to be talking about happened, the kids were actually really excited because they had just gone swimming. They went on a field trip, and they were really hyper. They were excited. There was actually a petition going around to extend the summer school program because they were having so much fun.
By 2 weeks, which blows anybody's mind that's like my age.
Yeah.
I wish summer school was that fun for me.
Yeah. And so, because it's summer, the buses are obviously running a little bit different. And the bus driver that was doing the summer school program was a bus driver called Ed Ray. He was just an ordinary man. He was a farmer who also drove a school bus. Ed Ray's family migrated to the area the same time that sent millions. His family, he's like a second generation Okie. And what an Okie is someone that migrated to California from the South and Midwest seeking farm work. It was about the time of the Dust Bowl. People needed work, so they all migrated west to California. And so Ed Ray was a second generation Okie. It used to be a very kind of derogatory term. According to Ray's nephew, Ronnie Ray, Ed wasn't very educated. He could barely read and write, but he was a strong worker. And he had a really extremely strong work ethic. He used to cut alfalfa with the horses. So instead of using a tractor, he would use the horses. And then he transitioned to the tractors when the tractors became well known. So as he got on later on in life, he was still working, but he also started driving the bus. And I will tell you, the kids adored Ed Ray. He was very, very punctual. You could set a watch by Ed Ray and his schedule for the bus. And he had a lot of patience with the kids. And he probably needed a lot of patience that day because they were extremely hyper after swimming. I remember field trips. It seemed like whenever you went on a field trip, you were always more excited because it was not part of your routine. And you're just really excited on the bus. I remember those days. I remember teachers yelling as you're getting back on the bus to go back to school. And yeah. So, and like I said, the kids were having a lot of fun with the summer school program. So, he lets off a couple kids, and then he turns onto Avenue 21. Nobody else on this road. He sees a 71 Dodge white van blocking the road. He tries to go around, But then a guy with pantyhose over his face jumps in front of the bus with a revolver and tells Ed to open the door. Now, what would you do? You have a bus full of kids, and this guy has a gun and says to open the door. Now, Ed could have probably taken him. He was said to be a really burly, strong guy. I mean, let's face it, those people that work in the fields. I mean, look at Paul Ingalls on Little House on the Prairie. Whenever he broke his rib and they showed his muscles, yeah. Now, granted, I know that's just TV, but seriously, I mean,
Farmers are ripped.
Yeah, he probably had lots of strength, but he has kids that he has to protect. What do you do? So he lets him in. And then two others jump out, and they also have pantyhose masks over their face. And one also has a rifle. One has the rifle pointed at Ed, and the other one has it pointed at the kids. And they usher everyone in to the back seat. I mean, can you imagine as a kid, you know, these people just jump on the bus. They had to have been terrified. And so they usher the kids in the back. One takes over the bus. And in about a mile, they park the bus, like in a bamboo thicket. And I can actually show you where they hid the bus. That is where the bus was found. That is the bus that the kids were on. It was like in a thicket.
The bus wasn't found in Chowchilla, was it?
It was about a mile from where Avenue 21 was. Mm-hmm. But they said that the area that it was hidden pretty fairly well. So it wasn't in the town of Chowchilla. Because remember, this is a very small town, a very rural town. So, you know, and houses were scattered. So they get the kids out of this bus. They put 12 kids in the first van. And then they put 14 and Ray in the other one. And in the back of these vans, they're sealed. They had plastered the windows. They sealed the windows. You couldn't really even see the driver's seat. It was kind of like a utility type van. So they're in the back. It's dark. It's very, very hot. They don't have any water at all. None. Okay, let me, yeah. So, you know, the kids are terrified. Some kids try to sing during this bus ride, or van ride. You know, they try to keep each other positive. Other kids try to sleep, but they can't. And, you know, they're petrified. They have no idea where they're going. So, meanwhile, while this is going on, because Ed is so punctual and so reliable, right away, people start wondering, where's the bus? So they start calling people, you know, they start calling the police, saying, where's the bus? And they start driving all over the county. And in 2.5 hours, they even have a plane that goes up to search for this bus. And a few hours later, they find the bus that we showed you, but they don't have any clues at all. So they have no idea what's going on. The FBI are called in. President Gerald Ford and the governor, who at the time was Jerry Brown, gives law enforcement a blank check to do everything they can to find this bus and these kids. The FBI floods into town. There's only 2 hotels in Chowchilla. They took both of them up. It was fully booked out by the FBI. That night, parents gather, and there's vigils all over the city. Well, I shouldn't say city, town. Like I said, it's a very small town. Once media gets wind of this, because this was a very big deal. It's a bus that was 26 kids plus the bus driver, are gone, and nobody can find them. So the media comes in. And I'm not just talking about one or two media. We're talking approximately 400 reporters. Some reports say that's one reporter for every 10 people in town. So, I mean, they just were all in. And then what happens when you get that many people in town? Rumors start flying because nobody knows where these kids are at. So people start speculating. Some people were talking about aliens. Now, I'm not saying that, I don't know where some of these things came from, but that's what happens when people start talking and speculating.
Oh, the 70s.
Yeah. And then some suspected that maybe some San Quentin inmates got out. Because remember, this time period, Charles Manson had only been in prison for like 5 years at this point. And in California, when Charles Manson and his family did all of that stuff, people were terrified. So that was only like 5 years prior. He'd only been in jail for prison for 5 years. So, that's still fresh in people's minds at that time. And also, the Zodiac Killer was still around and hadn't been caught. So people were speculating about a lot of different things. So meanwhile, the kids are on the road for 11 hours. In the back of those vans, no pit stops. I am sure they had to go to the bathroom. And I'm sure they had to have been thirsty. And they had to have been petrified. I can't even imagine how they were. And about 100 miles away in a town called Livermore, there was a rock quarry. And that's where these 3 guys take them. They get there about 3:30 a.m. And they pull Ed out first. And the way they do this is they pull him out of the back of the van, grab him, and then shut the door. So the kids have no idea what's going on. So their one protector, the one adult that was with them, is gone. And they're just staying there not knowing what's going on outside of this van. They pull him out, and they make him take his pants and boots off. They give him a flashlight, and they tell him to go down this hole with a ladder in it. Then they open the van again. They pull out a kid. Pull the kid out, shut the doors. This time, they make the kid strip, and they start taking the kids' names. They write them down on a Jack-in-the-Box hamburger wrapper, which to me seems really weird and not very well thought out.
I was going to say, it doesn't sound like there's a lot of planning involved.
And we will go more further into the planning in a few minutes. So they do this with every single kid. So they take the kid out, they write their name down, they strip the kids, and they send them down the hole. Now, their prison was like a truck trailer van. Now I'm going to show a picture of what it... Okay, something's going on with your mic, John.
Yeah, I hear it too.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, but there's a lot of noise.
Yeah.
So I'm going to show a picture.
It's probably my
Do you have air conditioning or a fan on?
I got my oxygen generator on.
Well, you're going to have to turn it off, or I don't know what, because we can't hear.
Hold on.
So this is
that better?
A little bit.
Is the fan on?
But it's a lot of background noise.
Mm. If I were a kid and if I were one of them kids, that would freak me out.
Yeah, so this is where the kids were. 26 kids and Ed.
What about now?
We could still hear it, but it's not as bad. Okay, so when they got in there, the sides and the ceiling were warped. And you can see this in the picture that they're warped. They had some mattresses, and the kidnappers were kind enough to give them Wonder Bread, some peanut butter, potato chips, and water jugs. And as you can see in the picture, they made holes for toilets so they could go to the bathroom. So after they put these kids in there, now we can't see it in this picture, but at the top of this truck trailer, they put a steel plate over the hole.
And mind you, this truck trailer was buried under the ground.
It was buried 12 feet under the ground. You're right.
Dang.
And after they slid the steel plate over the hole, they weighted it down with two 100-pound tractor batteries. So even though right now you can see in this trailer, it looks light because of the picture, and they're taking pictures, good pictures, because they want evidence. It got extremely dark in there. All they had was a flashlight. And the kids are begging to be let out. Some scream, some start crying. And because it was so musty and they were covering it with dirt and everything, dirt started to fly in and they were worried about suffocating. Now, they did have a ventilation system. Now, not a very good one, mind you. But they did have a ventilation system with the fan. And like I said, it wasn't very good. It was like just two air shafts with hoses, and it ran the hose above ground. But Ed is like really scared right now. He is like, this ceiling is going to cave in and we're going to suffocate and die. So, we know that these 26 kids got kidnapped. Why? That's a good question, right? And who was it that kidnapped these kids? Well, we're going to talk about that. Patrick Newhall Woods is 24. And here's the kicker. His parents are extremely wealthy. They're so wealthy, they live on an estate called the Hawthorns, 79 acres. Now, it's a rich area when they name their estate, because I live in a house, and I didn't name it. So, it was in Portola Valley, which at least then was in a very affluent area. So, Frederick was a typical rich kid. Mom and Dad gave him everything he wanted. He had money. He had a trust fund.
Silver spoon syndrome.
Yeah. And he watches this movie called Dirty Harry. Now, I don't know if anyone out there has watched Dirty Harry. I haven't. But it's about a guy who hijacks a school bus and asks for ransom, and he gets a flight, or he asks for ransom and a flight before fleeing to a quarry and holds a student at gunpoint. Now, Fred was known to be a loner. He was lazy. He really wasn't that motivated, but he does care about cars. He actually owned about 50 cars that was like on his parents' estate, and most of them were junkers. Neighbors actually complained a lot because he used to shoot the windows out of his cars for fun.
Wow.
Now,
Nothing wrong with that.
well,
I beg to differ.
Yeah. So,
And I bet the neighbors did too.
yeah, well,
They do that in West Virginia all the time.
well, this is a very affluent neighborhood, and I don't think that was a very appropriate behavior for that type of area. So, he has a business with a friend of his, actually two of his friends. He buys, sells, and repairs old cars. And he owns this business with his brother, his friends. James Schoenfield, who's 24, and his brother Richard Schoenfeld, who's 22. So they have this business where they buy and sell old cars. But Fred also has another business. And it's with another friend named David, who is a filmmaking major. And they have this business called Township Enterprises. And their dream is to have Fred flip cars and use the money to finance his friend's projects so they both can be movie producers. Yeah, I mean, you can't make this up.
It sounds too stupid to be true.
So Fred, after watching, this Dirty Harry movie, he's really, really inspired by this movie. So he hatches a plan. And he even tells David, like, oh, I got this really good idea. But I don't think he just tells him, right off what the idea is. I think he just tells him, oh, I have this great idea to make money. So him and his buddies, James and, Richard, they're fixing cars and working together. And you know how buddies get together and they talk and they dream about stuff. So they start plotting how to do this kidnapping. Just kind of, casually talking about, how they could do this and they could do that. And, nothing really ever comes of it. I don't think that the brothers really thought that Fred was serious about it. And, so they would just kind of shoot the breeze and talk about it. Well, finally, Fred does take it seriously. And he finally convinces the brothers to kind of get on board and say, like, listen, we can do this.
The brains of the operation.
Yeah, because he thinks...
No.
Go ahead.
Wasn't the truck that was used in the quarry where they dumped, wasn't that owned by a family member as well?
That I'm not 100% sure of.
I believe so.
They did buy some of the vans.
Yeah.
I don't know about the one where they hid the...
Because I remember reading somewhere that's how they busted them. Or they, not the... Hold on. It was...
Well, you're probably moving ahead a little bit.
Just a little bit, yeah.
The Frederick Woods, when they discovered the truck, they found out that it was leased by one of his relatives, and also the quarry was a family business.
Well, yeah, the quarry was.
Yeah.
So they start talking about this, and then they actually start, like, legit really planning it. Because Fred thinks that he is going to make all this money from this, and he'll be able to flip that money into this producing thing, and, get into the movies. Okay?
And we'll never get caught.
Yeah. And
fireproof plan.
they even had plans. Fred was the leader, of course. Honestly, James, I don't think that James and Rick would ever have gotten into this if it wasn't for Fred.
No, they didn't seem that swift,
No.
from what I understand. But
James...
Fred was just a little bit too greedy.
Yeah, and James, though, he was the planner. And he wrote plans in notebooks. He kept a coded diary. And Rick was just there. He was just there for the ride. And he's like, yeah, whatever. I'll do whatever you tell me to do. Now, remember what I told you about Chowchilla? It's a small rural town. Not a lot of money. People don't make money in Chowchilla. So why would they kidnap kids from Chowchilla? Well, here's where it gets a little interesting. Families couldn't afford a ransom in 1975. But Fred knew that in 1975, the governor of California was Ronald Reagan. And he announced that California had a $5 billion surplus in California. So Fred's logic was, well, we're going to go ahead and kidnap the kids And not only we're going to kidnap kids, we're going to kidnap school kids because the government is responsible for the school kids. And of course, they're going to do anything they can to get the kids back. And the government's
So
going
the
to pay the
government will
ransom.
pay the money.
Right.
Yep.
So, so Fred wants money so he can build, this production company. And Rick and James, they wanted Ferraris. They did this for Ferraris because
Priorities.
they loved cars and they wanted to be part of the cool crowd. And Ferraris, that was the it factor, apparently, where they were at. That meant you were cool and rich.
So a couple of gearheads and one greedy weirdo.
Yeah. So James, what's pretty funny is that James actually detailed, like they found this evidence. He details some of their plans. I mean, he wrote out some detailed plans. They were going to hijack a plane and use parachutes and put dummies in the plane so that people would think that they were dead after they collected the money. And so California people have always been stupid. Okay, Cleveland fan 1990. I guess.
Sorry. I didn't catch until you said that.
It must be the water.
So, and then
That or the air quality.
another part talks about how they need to remember to like burn the book that they used to plan this heist, and obviously they forgot to do that.
Yeah.
They were going to get infrared lights to see at night. They were going to ask for used bills. They were going to microwave oven to divert bugging devices. They weren't going to spend the money for 7 years. And for some weird reason, to rename to be anonymous, they were gonna get a vote for Reagan sticker and put it on their vehicles. So they were anonymous. Like, some of this is so ridiculous. So it wasn't very well planned. But they go through with it. So they buy the vans. They already had lots of guns. They go to the quarry and they bury the truck. They reinforce the ceiling with lumber so it doesn't collapse. And now the one smart part about their plan is, they decide that they're going to have them drop the $5 million ransom in the Santa Cruz Mountains by plane. And they were going to have an area with lights over a 200-mile. They were going to give them this 200-mile radius for them to drop the money off. Mm-hmm. And then they'd be able to get to the money before they could find them.
I have a question. Have either of you heard of D.B. Cooper?
Yes.
Yep.
We'll have
Does
to
this
cover
not
that case.
scream? Yes. Does this not scream some of that stuff? Like, seriously?
Yeah. They bought an X-ray machine in case the money was bugged. Fred gets a fake passport. Why the other two don't get a fake passport, I don't know. Because Fred is the only one with a fake passport. So, they go to Chowchilla. They stake out this bus. They stake out the route. So they have everything planned and they go through with it. So, we're going to go back to the town the night of the kidnapping. The families are terrified. They have no idea what's going on. This is a very small, close, tight-knit community. And everybody knew about it. Now, that night, electricity went out, so people were lighting candles, playing games with their kids, trying to reassure them that everything is okay, that they're safe. But, kids are pretty smart, and they knew something was going on. They knew that their parents, they knew something was wrong. At Ed's place, his family is glued to the news. They're talking about Ed's last moments, like where they saw him at. Someone said he'd been baling hay at noon. His favorite drink was Pepsi, and after he was done baling hay, he was drinking Pepsi under a shade tree. Well, during the newscast, as you know, I told you all of those rumors and theories that were thrown out. One of them suggested that maybe Ed was involved in the crime. and that angered a lot of people, and especially his wife, because everybody knew Ed, and they said there was no way that he was involved. So there's reporters everywhere in town. It's just a chaotic mess. The sheriff's office only has one phone, and people are calling in a lot of tips. Every shoe that they find, every white van that they see, they're calling in everywhere from all around. And most of the tips are false. And at one time, they only had one phone. So the FBI, when they came in and put like 30 to 40 lines in. And they were still jammed up. And there were so many false leads, and none of them were concrete, and the phones were constantly ringing. Which, by the way, is why the kidnappers
couldn't get through to do the ransom.
Exactly, and they fell asleep.
Morons.
Yeah, they couldn't get in, so they decide to take a nap. And then by the time they get up, well, you'll know what'll happen here in a minute. Are you guys still there? Hello? Hello? Okay, I think we lost them, so they'll be back. So, yeah. The kidnappers who planned this all out to get money can't even demand their money because the phone lines are jammed up. So, no sound. Okay, can you hear me? Okay, can you still hear me, Cleveland Fan 1990? Let me get a drink of water. Okay. So, as I was saying, they fall asleep. So, while they're sleeping, we're going to go back to this prison that these terrified kids are in, and Ed is in. Now, they've been in this dark hole for 12 hours. And it starts to get pretty bad in there. And it gets hot. They're running out of food and water. Dirt kept coming in, and they were really worried that the sides were going to bow in and that the top of the ceiling was going to fall in on them. Okay, let me see if I can get you on camera here. Okay. I wonder why it didn't show. Okay, let me get you back. Wrong one. Okay, can you guys hear me okay?
I can hear
Can you
fine.
hear us?
Yep.
Okay,
Awesome.
sorry.
It's okay.
Internet issues.
Okay, so we moved on. We're back at the bus. The hole.
Okay.
And they've been in there for 12 hours. They're getting scared. And the fan that they had for the ventilation stopped. So they start to get terrified. And Ed is losing hope. He thinks they're going to die. Now, he was wanted to give up. He thought that the kidnappers were up there just waiting for them. He thought they were, really up there waiting for them to come out and shoot them or something. He didn't even want to try to escape. But they had to do something. Because, the ventilation fan stopped. So, Marshall, who was 14, he was riding the bus because, I think he got in trouble at home or something, and his mom told him he had to ride the bus. So,
Yeah, it said on the documentary of Chowchilla that he got into his mom's beer and he tried to pop some popcorn, almost burnt the house down. And his mom's like, "All right, you're riding the bus. I'm not dealing with this now."
Yeah, okay. But you know what? It turned out to be really a good thing because
Yeah.
he
Amen.
was determined to not give up. And he told Ed, I'm not going to give up. And so him and 10-year-old Robert Gonzalez started stacking up mattresses. There were some of the other kids, older kids that were helping as well. A lot of time the girls were just trying to comfort the younger kids. I mean, there was kids that were as young as 6 years old on this bus.
Yeah, it said on Wikipedia, I believe, and in the
5,
documentary it said
5 to
there were kids
14.
from 5 to 14. Yeah,
Okay.
so there was a big age range for these kids. So, you know, the older ones probably, the boys especially, were let's do this, let's at least give it a try, and probably most of the girls were trying to keep, take care of the little ones, tell them it's going to be okay, we're going to get out of here.
Yeah. But Ed, I mean, for a while there, he lost hope. I mean,
But yeah, I don't blame him
well, I don't either.
because he was thinking they're out there waiting for me, waiting, and they're going to kill us all.
Right.
Let's wait to see if the cops can find us.
Right. So they stack up these mattresses, and Ed starts helping. They get the steel plate off, and they're able to push off the batteries. But
Which
they're
those batteries
still
are huge.
yeah, they were 100 pounds each, and there was two of them.
Yeah, so
So they had
them kids
already
are
did
range.
that. Yeah, they had already did that, and they're thinking, oh, finally we're gonna get out. But then they realized that there was like more wood stuff that they had to go through first. So they take the wooden slats from the bed strings on the bed springs on the mattresses and use those to pry up an opening. And Ed, he's a pretty burly guy. We talked about this before. He was a farmer. It got to be too much for him, so he starts using his legs. So between him, Mike, and Robert, they just keep poking and poking and poking. And
yeah, we need to
finally,
give these people all the credit in the world. These kids and that man, they came together and they got the job done. I mean, props. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
and
They also said there were some moments of dementia too from the heat.
yeah.
Which,
And-
yeah,
So they finally see the stars. Can you imagine after doing all of that work, you're hopeless. Ed was crying. I mean, all the kids I'm sure at one point were crying and feeling hopeless, and they see the stars. And Ed was able to push Michael through the hole, and they helped get the kids out. Now, I will tell you, I don't know. I didn't see any evidence in my research, but there is, and we'll talk about this a little bit later. They did a made-for-TV movie. And in the made-for-TV movie, at the end, as they're pulling the kids out, because when the kids were made to go in the hole, they had to say their name for the kidnappers. Well, as in the movie, they had the kids actually say their name as they were taken out of the hole. Just, I think, kind of as a way for those kids to kind of like, claim their identities back after, all that control was taken away from them. Now, whether that happened or not, I don't know. It was a TV movie. Made for a good movie, but there you go.
I couldn't find research that says that's what they did.
I didn't see anything in my research either, but, you gotta make TV movies.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a touching moment. It was a good movie, but,
And what year was that movie made?
Oh, I don't remember.
Hold
If it was
on.
in- I was going to say, if it was in the 80s, it's not too far from when the
It was
when the actual
probably in the 80s. Probably
There's a
late
lot-
80s.
yeah
be
made for
my
TV
guess.
movies. That was the big thing in the 70s and 80s. So
1993.
Oh, okay. I was wrong. Okay. 1993.
17 years after
March
it actually
1st.
happened. Still, though, from the 70s to the early 90s, big on made for TV movies because people, internet's not around. Everyone, family gets around the TV at night, made for TV movies.
And that's how I first heard about this case. Is I saw that, and it wasn't obviously in 1993. It was like on Lifetime one time, and I'm like, oh, this looks good. And then I found out it was a true story. I'm like, oh. So
I've seen it on Amazon.
I'll be darned. Lifetime made a good movie.
The actual documentary.
I'm impressed.
Well, I don't know if Lifetime made the movie. I bet it was like on ABC because like CBS, NBC.
It said ABC.
Yeah, it used to make all those movies, but then a lot of them went to
ABC
Lifetime. Lifetime would play them.
And ABC used to be big. I mean, they're still big on family stuff. I don't know if they're still owned by the House of Mouse, but I know. And when I was a kid in the 70s and 80s, that's when all the made for TV movies were, and they were all feel good kind of things. And
John, what was the name of the movie? Do you have it on you?
I can get it. Hold on.
Okay. So we're in this hole. They're coming out of the hole. Okay.
They've taken our children. The Chowchilla kidnapping, and it aired on ABC on March 1st, 1993.
Okay.
It is on. It is on.
I think Amazon.
Prime.
Yeah.
No.
It's a good movie. So yeah, if you need something fun, or I won't say fun, if you want something interesting to watch, it does a pretty good job.
And there's also a documentary on Amazon.
Yeah. So Ed is in his underwear, and he's leading these kids. It's like about 8 p.m. They've been in that hole. By the time they got out, they had been in that hole for 16 hours. So
in your research, could you find out why they made him put him in his underwear? What the reasoning was behind that?
Didn't they strip all of them?
They did. I know in the movie, it was they wanted to show the evidence that they had the kids, but I don't know if that's why. It might have been to protect them because it was so hot. It could have been to remove their dignity, but I never saw any, concrete reason why in my research. But so he's in his underwear. They're going down this dirt road, and a quarry employee sees him, and he pushes the alarm, thinking like it's a trespasser. Well, Ed goes up to him and says, "No, listen, we're the ones from Chowchilla." I mean, Ed had to have known that everybody was looking for them at this point.
Oh, yeah.
And so the story goes, according to family members, that the guy gave Ed a Pepsi and gave him some overalls. And because he was in his underwear. And they walked to the quarry's guard shack. And the police were called. And ironically, they were taken to the Santa Rita jail, which was the nearest facility with medical staff. And they were given clothes, and I'm going to go ahead and show another picture. Okay, why is it not working? Maybe, because I'm not in the right one. Okay, come on. Okay, there we go. That's that one. Okay, and here's this one. So these are a picture of some of the kids and the staff, and they were given some of the overalls that the jail mates, had, because they didn't have any clothes, and that's all they had at the jail was inmate clothing.
Right. And on the documentary, the kids talked about how they were wearing like the overalls from the prisoners and stuff that got, and they talked about what food they got, and they were like, we felt like they were treating us like we were in jail. But I mean, of course, they were kids. Even the teenagers probably were like, "What's going on?"
Yeah, but they were
trying to give them back some dignity.
Yeah, they were given food and drink and water, and also while they were there, they interviewed every single kid about what happened. And then after they were done doing that, they did take the kids back in a Greyhound bus, and they were reunited with their families.
Now, on the documentary, Michael said he was going to say something when they were interviewing him, but he decided to let the grown up. I think he said he either said he just let the grown ups talk, or he was going to say something, but he felt it was better to let the grown ups speak. And he said he realized after that he should have said something.
Well, what happened was, so they get there, and as we said before, the media is like totally out there waiting for them so they can get pictures. They want interviews, and they specifically wanted an interview with Ed. Well, Ed's wife was still pretty mad at reporters because
I would be too.
They suggested that he had something to do with it. And she took charge and said that he could tell his story, but the stipulation was no questions are to be asked of him. Which reporters were not happy about that. But they wanted that, press coverage. So they did. He gave a very, simplistic rundown of what happened. And at one point during the circus, the principal actually, Michael was going to share his story at one point. Well, the principal, and I don't think that the principal, in my opinion anyway, did it to stifle Michael's story. I think he recognized that it was a circus. The kids had to have been exhausted. What they needed was to go home with their families and just, decompress.
Yes.
That's what I think, too.
So,
I don't think he was doing it to be intentionally, trying to shut the kids up. Just, let's get these kids back to their families. They want their moms and dads.
Yeah, because, like I said, there was 400 reporters there that had surrounded Chowchilla. And so, so he stayed silent. And, he never did say anything. And, he's a kid. He's a 14-year-old kid. And it did bother him because people viewed Ed as a hero. And he was.
To a point, he was a hero, but those kids...
But so was the kids.
Props to those kids because they fought. They fought too. He wasn't as much of a hero as everyone made him out to be, but he did lead the kids back.
Well, right. And but the thing with Ed, though, in all of my research, he didn't want the spotlight anyway.
No, he was not. He wasn't trying to take the spotlight from anybody. They wanted him, I think they wanted to reward him for something. They saw him. They know that he brought the kids back. They thought he deserved it, whether he wanted it or not. They wanted to show him that they cared about him and they, had so much compassion and love for him.
Right.
Because he brought the kid. At the end of the day, he brought the kids back.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, the kids rescued. Yeah. The kids rescued themselves. Yes. But he led them back.
Yeah, and we'll dive deeper into that in a little bit. But, so the kids are back. The parents are relieved. They've got their kids back. Nobody died. They didn't have anything physically wrong with them except maybe some cuts and bruises and scratches. But at this point, the kidnappers are still out there. Now, they put Ed Ray under hypnosis. And he was able to recall one of the license plates of the van that had taken them to the quarry. Because remember, there was 2 vans. And he was able to recall one of the licenses of the van. And so, using the power of looking up, who this belonged to, they were able to figure out a name. Now, what these kidnappers did after they discovered, they escaped. We didn't get the ransom in time because we fell asleep.
And by the time they thought to make any calls, they couldn't get through.
Can you imagine, though? You did all of this work, and you can't get through to give the ransom, and then you fall asleep, and then you wake up, and they've escaped. Yeah.
So I have a question for the two of you. Have you ever seen that little thing that goes around on YouTube Shorts or TikTok? All this work and what did it get me? That's the exact line that plays. When I think about these guys, it's like, wow, y'all are dumb.
Well,
or
what we
tired.
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Well,
But
what
yeah.
we do know is, after they realized that, they escaped, they realized they needed to get away. So they met in the middle of the night, stashed the vans at a remote warehouse somewhere, and James and Fred were together, and they sped off toward a trailer in Reno, and they were going to kind of make that their home base until they could go to Canada. Now Rick, on the other hand, now remember Rick was the one that was just kind of like in it to be in it. He didn't really, Well, he was
I
starting
don't
to
think
feel
he
really.
thought went further than maybe this will be interesting.
Yeah, he went back home, and eventually he confessed to his dad, who of course then immediately got him the best lawyer money could buy.
Oh yeah.
And the 19th of the month, law enforcement found one of the kidnapping vans, as we said, and then by the 22nd, Fred is officially a suspect. On the 23rd, they found the undelivered ransom note. And on the undelivered ransom notes, it said, "Your bus has been kidnapped," and it claimed they're members of some unknown satanic cult called Beelzebub.
Yeah.
And it,
Beelzebub. Beelzebub, do you know what that actually means?
no.
It means Satan.
Okay.
That's
it was
another
a
word for
satanic
Satan.
cult.
Right.
But it also mentions Fred by name, which was pretty dumb.
Like I said, dumb, dumber, dumbest.
And they found the other vans, and they found about 4,000 pieces of evidence. So, like, yeah. The judge in Chowchilla sets a $1 million bond and puts warrants out for the three. Well, Rick couldn't take it anymore, like you said. He confessed to his dad. Dad got him the best lawyer money could buy, and he turned himself in. So when he turned himself in, his dad was there and his lawyer. Well, the other two, there's like a national manhunt out for them. And now when the two went to Reno, Fred left James, flew to Vancouver using his fake passport. I don't know why he left James. I don't know why James didn't get a fake passport. Well, James got scared. He went to Idaho and tried to cross into Canada. But get this. He got turned away because he was too nervous and his car was full of guns. So he goes and sells his guns. Hold on, what? Okay. So he goes to Spokane, sells his guns, tries to go back to Canada again, but here Fred left 2 pistols in the center console and 2 rifles in the trunk, and he got turned away again. Which boggles my mind, because how did they not know he was wanted? But it is what it is, though. So after that, he then...
I wonder if the Canadian thing was not as, because it's different time and everything.
Could be.
They
didn't have as much.
Way pre 9/11, pre COVID, all this other jazz.
But
I mean,
he trades the car for a 50 Chrysler van. It's been 5 days. He smells bad. Hasn't slept in a bed in 5 days, and he's still writing about his experiences in his journal. And he tells himself, and I quote, "Turn yourself in. It's the only respectable thing to do. The crime should not be copied. Therefore, those responsible should be made examples to those with similar ideas. Correct attitude, but I hope they take into effect that we will never do a dishonest thing again, and that the initial verdict of life would suffice. Prospective criminals will expect to get life. They may not, but note the 3 to 7 probation." Whatever that means. But that's a quote that he put in his journal. So he decides to turn himself in and heads home. But because there was an APB on him, he gets found out and pulled over. So Fred, who's in Vancouver, he goes to a hotel room, pays in advance for a hotel room, and he doesn't really do much during this time. But he did write some letters. And he apparently was waiting for James to come to Canada. And so he just kind of laid low. But he was also writing letters. Remember his screenwriter friend that he was going to get rich with and all this stuff? He's writing him, telling him that this crime would make a good movie of the week.
Oh my God.
Come on. Are you serious?
If not a feature. And even though it was very sensationalistic, he says, for someone not to cash in, so why not him? And then he says, my ending is not exciting enough, so you might have to kill some people or something. If you do, make it into a film. All I want is a percent of it. You make it up, I don't care how much, but be fair. So he's trying to make money off of this. Well, this letter is what got him caught. Because they knew, apparently, somehow, I don't know, I never did find out exactly how. They knew they found out his name on his passport. And they knew he'd been sending letters to this guy under his passport name. So, that's how he was caught.
So not really dealing with the Rhodes Scholar here, are we?
No, I mean, like...
I mean, none of them are, but this guy apparently, he must have thought he was like, all that bag of chips.
So they're all in the Chowchilla jail, and a lot of people were really upset. Someone actually asked the sheriff if they could just go in, and just kill them. No one would care, and he's like, no. If someone tries to do that, they will be taken care of. He was a law-abiding sheriff.
And thank goodness, because let's be honest, this is Northern California we're talking about. This is not one of these big liberal cities. These people were, farmers, people,
right?
People of the earth. I mean, and this is no shade at farmers at all, because I think they are like the awesomest people on earth. But these are conservatives. They're farmers, and they think, you know what? Let's just take care of things ourselves. And thank God the sheriff is like, nah, you're not going to do that. That's no. And these people had better thank their lucky stars. This sheriff was like, I'm doing this for y'all.
Right. So they did, though, at one point, someone drove by the jail and shot out the windows with a shotgun. I think it was to kind of scare the kidnappers, but they were unharmed, and it is what it is. So I will also show you a video. I don't know why it keeps going back to that. But this is a video of them being transported. Probably either to jail or to court. I'm not 100% sure. But these are the three suspects. And they did plead guilty to kidnapping for ransom.
Pictures of us.
And robbery. But refuse to lead... But they refused to plead guilty to infliction of bodily harm. Because with that, it carried a mandatory sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole. So they wanted to plead guilty to kidnapping for ransom and robbery, but not with the infliction of bodily harm. But they went ahead and were tried, and they were found guilty. And Ed Ray testified. All of the kids testified.
Wow.
And the judge said that in their eyes, the terror that the kids went through, because they talked about how awful it was, the judge felt that constituted bodily harm. But due to high-priced lawyers, it was overturned on appeal, and the sentence was changed to life with possibility of parole, because the appeals court felt that by law the injuries were only cuts and bruises, and that was it.
Which,
so
we'll talk about that later, because I'm honked off. I know this was in 76. I was like a year and some change old. That makes me mad.
Right.
And to end the story, all three of them are actually out of prison.
Well, we're gonna talk about that.
You're getting too fast.
So Richard was released in 2012. His brother James was paroled in 2015. They both went home to take care of their mother, and they haven't spoken out. They have not made any ruckus. They've just stayed out of the limelight. They don't, you don't, no other information is known. They were on their best behavior in jail. They didn't cause a ruckus. They did their time. Fred, though, however, the one that originated this kidnapping plot, was not. He was caught multiple times having pornography in his jail cell.
So much contraband.
And he had money from he inherited $100 million from his parents, which in 2023 would equal to about $127 million. He had access to this money in jail. He was running several businesses behind bars, including a gold mine, a car dealership. There was another one, and I can't remember what it was.
That money should have went to the families.
Well, hold up.
And I believe it was at the car dealership. He had the vans he kept those kids in because he thought they'd be worth money.
Yes, I did read that. I just didn't write that in my notes, so thank you, Christy. He was married 3 times, and he bought a mansion a half hour away from the prison. Okay, I hear something again. So mute your mic.
Me, I swear.
Mute your mic while you're not talking, John. Thank you. So, at 70, he's finally released on parole. Now, I just don't know what's wrong with his picture. He did he did all this for money. He kidnapped these kids for money, and now he walks out of prison with all this money.
I mean, he wasn't broke to begin with. He was just a greedy piece of work.
Right, and that leads to us. Like, you know, some people, and back then, the belief is, oh, kids are resilient. They'll get over it. They sent the kids to Walt Disneyland. They got, you know, they sent all the kids from the bus kidnapping to Disneyland to make them feel better.
Does that not make you angry, though? I mean, well, I know they didn't know back then.
They didn't know better back then.
I agree, but
you're right.
But the documentary that Amazon, this is a recent documentary. It talks to these kids as adults. They're still impacted by it.
Right.
So, well,
that's our question. What did Chowchilla teach us about trauma?
It's going to impact you as an adult.
And 25, 35, 50 years into these people's lives, it has impacted them. There was a lady that was a kid during this. Her son watched his mom drink herself to death, basically, because she could. And every time one of those, and she passed away, unfortunately, God rest her soul.
Yeah.
Because she she died before these guys started getting out of prison.
Jody Heffington.
Yes.
Yeah, she actually left Chowchilla. We were going to talk about that later, but since you talked about it, she opened her own salon. She raised a son, but she struggled. And her whole life, she said she felt like she wasn't a good daughter. She wasn't a good mother. She wasn't a good aunt, just due to the effects of the trauma. You know, she just didn't feel like she was good enough because it impacted her so much. You know, but she went to every parole hearing because she wanted these guys kept in prison. She passed away at 55 years of age.
And that's what I don't understand. If they knew this idiot was making money, they should have made him give money to the families.
We haven't got there yet. No. Give me a minute. So, what we're going to do is the question is, what did Chowchilla teach us about trauma? Now, there was a psychiatrist, and I have the name somewhere in my notes, and I can't find it right now. But there was someone, a psychiatrist. I looked up the medical journal report. She studied these kids, and it was on the
Yeah,
documentary.
right after she got out of college, she was a child therapist, I believe, a child psychologist, and she said that someone needed to go in there and talk to the kids, and everyone was like, "Oh, they're going to be fine and everything." And they kept with that narrative, just some scratches and scratches, scrapes, and bruises, no big deal. And everyone thought the adults that they were protecting these kids. They probably didn't want to talk to the reporters and stuff, and talk and another, whatever. And I mean, these kids were like, we didn't understand. They kept. I mean, so many, like almost all the kids, especially the older ones that were really started understanding the gravity of the situation, were like, when you talked about, they sent, they took us to Disney World, but that was just basically like a Band-Aid effect.
Well, one thing I thought was interesting was they said that they actually sent some of the survivors, obviously they were all survivors, but they sent some of these kids when Columbine got shot up to talk to the kids about trauma, not so much
older
about
kids,
the shooting, because they don't know, okay, how it feels to be shot, but they knew how to go through the trauma based off what they went through, being locked up in a bus.
Right. And that's what the psychiatrist studied this. And I actually, I watched the documentary, but I actually went to the psychiatrist. It was on the government website about the study that she did with the Chowchilla students. And she studied 23 children from that bus incident, 5 to 13 months after the kidnapping, and they all had different symptoms of trauma. They had fear of more trauma, hallucinations, changes in personality, persistent bad dreams. Well, then she went back 4 years later, studied 25 kids, including one child who, even though this child wasn't kidnapped, this person was almost kidnapped. So it was probably one of those kids that he dropped off
right before. Yeah.
And every single one of them had PTSD. And what she noticed is how severe it was, differentiated based on family components, personalities, what kind of community they had surrounding them, some of the symptoms they had, which is interesting. They had formed sometimes incorrect perceptions of the memories of the event, which is interesting because, okay, we're talking about the 14-year-old kid that, he said that he felt slighted because he felt like he was the hero. And I am in no way suggesting that he was or he wasn't. But how much did his memory of what happened, I'm not saying it was incorrect or correct, but how did it get skewed to make him even feel worse? I don't know. But that's some of the symptoms. They had repetitive nightmares, dreams about dying, shame, feeling pessimistic about the future. And she also said the brief treatment given the kids during that 5 to 13 months did not prevent any of the symptoms at all.
Oh, no. And I'm not surprised it didn't, because, it was just like, you'll be fine. We treated you for however long we thought it was okay. They had no idea about how long this could, this kind of thing could traumatize somebody.
And this was the first time that they discovered that childhood trauma is real and how long effects can last.
Oh, yeah.
Because prior to that, we all know now, they're buzzwords, unfortunately. Childhood trauma. And I'm not saying it's not real. It's there. But back then, that wasn't discussed. So...
to put a finer angle on it, this has nothing to do with the case, but in relations to studying children and trauma, until I think 83 or 86, I believe. They were operating on babies without anesthesia because they didn't think babies felt pain.
Right.
They just thought their babies cry. They didn't realize that when a baby's crying because you're operating on them, it might be feeling pain.
Right.
So a lot of this is, very new. I mean, relatively speaking.
Well, and the documentary that we all watched was fairly recent documentary.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they're still dealing with stuff. So in 2016, the surviving victims actually filed a lawsuit for false imprisonment, intentional reckless infliction of emotional distress, assault, and battery. ABC 30 Action News in California actually discussed this. This is where I found the information at. Mm-hmm. And that's where they, talked to them about this lawsuit. And they tried to get comments from the three men. And they were just shown different comments from interviews that they had done like 20 years prior. So these are quotes.
Yeah.
James Schoenfield said, "I'm very sorry, deeply sorry for what I've done." Okay, that's fair. Rick said, "I was immature, I was a follower, and I made an extremely stupid decision here."
Better.
Totally. I mean, honestly, James said he was sorry, and I really don't have a problem with what he said. And
okay, what's the moron got to say there?
Exactly.
Waiting for the good one.
It was just a lot of pain and suffering we put everybody through that we didn't realize we were doing at the time. But now, I just hope that everyone is going on with their lives. Everything can be somewhat back to normal. That is what Fred
He's an
said.
idiot.
Yeah. And,
that's the rich old guy, right?
Yeah. And obviously he doesn't get it. Which is why he stayed in prison the longest. But the lawsuit was settled. And it was paid out of Fred Wood's estate.
Nice.
We don't know.
Hit him where it hurts, in the pocketbook,
but
as they would say.
We don't know the amount. And one survivor was quoted as saying that the amount was enough to pay for some serious therapy, but not enough for a house.
Wow.
So, yeah. So I don't really think it hurt him that bad.
No.
Yeah.
If
but
not enough
it's
for
something.
A house, then he got to slap. But yeah, I mean, let's look at it realistically. He got a slap on the wrist, technically. I don't care if he wasn't in jail for life, and monetarily, a slap on the wrist. So,
right.
I mean, if anyone's still paid for that, it was them kids.
Right. So Ed Ray, we talked about him.
He's dead, isn't he?
He is. After the kidnapping, the media wanted to make him a superstar and a hero. And he didn't want that. He didn't want the attention. He won trips. He won, luggage. Cleveland fan 1990 wants to know, did he ever get his Ferrari?
Was he?
I have no idea.
If anybody deserved a Ferrari, it was that guy.
Well, no, the kidnapper. I will say this to the kidnappers, the rich guy. Yeah. I don't know. Well, I don't know.
I will say this. I don't know about you, Susan. I will say this though, 100%. If I thought someone was slandering the person I cared about the most in this world, I would be all over them.
Yeah. Because
I don't care what you say about me, but you say something about someone that I care about deeply, like that level of, care and concern and love, there's nothing you can say now. To me, you're scum, and I hope you, hope you choke.
Well, they wanted to exploit him because it's all about money. I guess he did do an episode of Hollywood Squares. We talked about how the kids got a Disneyland trip, and, Ed just wanted to go back to normal.
He wanted to go back to his farm, simple.
He
He was
wanted,
a simple man. He wanted a simple life, and people would not leave him alone. It sounds
yeah,
like.
and like if someone tried to talk to him about the kidnapping, he would just a lot of times he would change the subject and talk about his work, the weather. He'd offer you a Pepsi, his favorite drink, and he went back to his bus
But
route.
let's be honest. I mean, we have talked about how much trauma them kids went through. He probably went through trauma too. He was the bus driver. He felt responsible for these
He
kids. These
did.
kids loved him. All he at the end of the day, all he wanted to do was protect those kids. And this poor guy, who just had nothing, wanted nothing more than just to go back to a simple, peaceful life.
Yeah.
People would stop hounding him. Oh, it's the hero. When you're a quiet, introverted person who just wants to be around family and friends, have a peaceful life, and you got everyone breathing down your neck because they think you're just one. Even if
Well,
it's just what they think, what they see as positive, you can see as like the most awful thing because if you're introverted, you don't want all that attention. It sucks.
well, and on a rare occasion, like on the anniversaries, he would talk about it.
Mhm.
The reporter would ask, "Well, did you get over, what happened to you?" And he'd say, "Oh yeah, I got over it." But his wife one time told the reporter, that she knows he doesn't sleep a lot at night. And when things bother him, he'll just kind of go off. He always comes back, but he just kind of has to take some time. And she caught him just crying alone in the barn often. So it did affect him. And
Yeah,
obviously, you
Yeah.
know. So Ed Ray died in 2012 at 91. And in the weeks prior to his death, just about everyone that was with him down in that hole came to say their goodbyes. And
those
his
those
birth-
kids
yeah,
loved him.
and his birthday is a local holiday now.
Nice.
Didn't they announce that in the town as?
Yeah, Ed Ray Day.
Thank you. I almost forgot his name.
And
And like I said, no disrespect because it just
I'm gonna
I feel
show
my heart breaks for that man and his family because I mean they
Okay.
all 27 of those people went through so much trauma.
We're gonna hide that.
And
I'm not ready for that yet, but yeah,
the kids that went through the kids that are still alive, they went through it. That poor man went through it. And I mean, let's be honest. If you're around someone that went through that level of trauma, to some level, you're living through their trauma still. If they haven't dealt with it or are not dealing with it, you're living through their trauma.
right. So I did find little bits of tidbits about some of the survivors. Jennifer Brown Hyde is a wife, a mother, an executive assistant, and though she says she's lived a wonderful life, it took her decades to be able to sleep without a nightlight. We talked about Jodie Hevington already. She, had a salon but passed away at 55. And the last story that I have is, we talked about Mike Marshall. And he's the one that, the 14-year-old. And who let the adults shape the narrative. He suffered from blackout drinking between 19 and 20 because he just wanted to forget the kidnapping. Larry Park, another survivor, he also dealt with alcohol abuse in his 20s and 30s. And he asked God one day just to help him forgive the kidnappers because he couldn't take it anymore. He was just drowning out an alcoholic, drinking away his nightmares and, his problems. And he asked God to help him forgive the kidnappers. And guess what he did?
I was going to say, wasn't he the one that
He
in
met
the documentary he said that he prayed to God? He said, "I need you to forgive them because I can't. I need you to heal them because I can't, and I need you to forgive them because I won't."
but
That right
he
there is one of the
actually-
most.
But he did forgive them by time
But
because
he said that prayer that he about forgive and heal was, to me, that sounds like one of the most powerful prayers because when you're suffering through that level of trauma and I mean, however you deal with the trauma, whether you go to God or whatever you do, at the end of the day, it's hard.
yeah, and God worked through him, and he now owns a handyman business, and he volunteers as a pastor at his church.
And he finally quit drinking, didn't he?
He quit drinking, and he he met every single kidnapper, shook their hands, and forgave them. And I actually have a picture of Park with, I believe this is James that he met. He actually met him and got his picture taken. And right, the guy in the red obviously is Larry Park. And then the last tidbit I have. Okay, let me hide that. You know, Larry Park. Oh, let me hide that. Hold on. Okay, Larry Park actually thanked Marshall for never giving up and credited Marshall for saving him.
Wow.
You know, Marshall is doing better now too. He's a long distance truck driver and a father now. And you know, Park told CNN, and I'll leave you with this, and I quote, "Even through all the alcohol and stuff, I never gave up, not completely, because I was taught at 6 years old by a 14-year-old boy, you don't give up, you keep digging."
That's incredible.
And that's the Chowchilla kidnapping story. I mean, you know, God was there with them in that
Oh yeah.
trailer.
And the only thing left to pray about that, besides peace for the remaining victims, is that one idiot that was so focused on money, you know, that he was like, we can all move on. No,
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people said he's like a sociopath, psychopath.
That's like, I
It
kind of
sounds
wonder
like
if
it.
he sounds like he's got on the sociopath. If he's not full sociopath, he got some sociopathic tendencies for sure.
Yeah, I don't think that the boys, the other two, ever would have got involved if it hadn't been for Fred. So, but that's our case this week. I hope you all, I don't want to say enjoyed it, but I hope you all got something from it. So I think it was a good case because it had even though there was a lot of trauma, there was no, like, you know,
These people fought hard.
They fought hard, and you know, a lot of them have made something from themselves, you know, and overcome a lot of adversity. And
at least 2 of the 3 people that were involved, you know, accepted responsibility and said, you know, it was stupid. I genuinely, you know, I'm very sorry for my idiocy.
Yeah. So, yeah. But is there any questions out there in chat? Like I said, I don't know if he ever got his Ferrari. Fred, when he got paroled, was 70 years old. I don't. He got paroled in 2020. So, yeah. I don't know what he's doing right now. But maybe he got his Ferrari. He has the money to get a Ferrari, so it'd be nice if he used that money.
I hope he's in a nursing home with a really ugly CNA. There.
I would hope that he would put that money to good use, you know, to deal with
I'll leave my comments to myself.
I'm bitter. I'm bitter about the dude, so I don't care. He's an old guy. Come after me. I'm getting old too. Let's bring it.
Don't forget to hit that like button. We would really, really appreciate it if you hit that like button. It kind of pushes this video out so other people can see it. Subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. We got some interesting cases coming up. I don't know when yet, but there is a case right now. The Chad Daybell case is going on, so we do want to cover that one. I don't know when, but soon. They picked jury this week, so that trial.
What's that about? I forgot.
Chad Daybell, the one where he killed his wife and so he could marry Lori Vallow, and she killed her ex-husband, I believe, and her kids.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's an interesting case, a sad case, but the trial's going on for Chad Daybell right now, so.
You know, you'd think people get to a point in their life where they're too old to be thinking with their genitalia, but apparently not so much.
Yeah. So, okay, well, thanks again for watching. I don't see any other questions. Again, thank you all for watching. And if you're watching this in the VOD, if you have any questions, feel free to put a comment. If there is a case you want to hear about, please
Send
put
us
it
a
in
line.
the comments. Yes, we love to. And if you just have a comment, concern about anything, let us know. And we will see you